Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoteric and our continuing series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and I got a fun special edition preview for this evening because Robert, or FPGAZumSpass, has pulled another rabbit out of his hat, or in this instance a Pikachu out of his hat, because Transfer Pak support is now included in the core, and we can transfer over data from Game Boy cartridges and files into the actual Nintendo 64 core in FPGA. Feels like multiple levels of Inception. We're now going to be running Game Boy games on a Nintendo 64 FPGA core. Neither bit of the hardware is there, it is all done in FPGA logic. But if we go into Pokemon here, if you're in the Pokemon Stadium menu, you're going to see the Game Boy Tower. Back in the day, and I didn't know anybody who had this, the Transfer Pak would allow you to transfer in information from your original Game Boy cartridges with the Transfer Pak, and it would even let you play the original 3 Pokemon Game Boy games within Pokemon Stadium themselves. And that's what you're seeing right now. This is loading up the Game Boy ROM in the Nintendo 64 FPGA core, giving you the border like you would see on original hardware, and now we can play Pokemon Blue with inside of a Nintendo 64 FPGA core. This is such a fun random feature, and I'm just showing the Pokemon features here. There's other games that allow for the Transfer Pak support as well. This core has been out for about 47 minutes as of recording of this video. It was yesterday. I'm going to be putting this video up on a Tuesday, but just be aware that we're going to learn more about how this functions and what it can do as the days go on. But this is insane. Watching something like this work in real time is just wild. So to make this work, you're going to go to load GB transfers, either going to be GBC or .gb. Those are the file extensions. You're going to load up whatever game you want in this instance to play Pokemon. I'm going to load up Blue, and then from there we need to switch the Pad 1 type to Transfer Pak. Robert put directions up. This is the order in which you need to do this for it to function. Once you've loaded up that ROM and selected the Transfer Pak secondarily, you can go ahead into Pokemon Stadium or Pokemon Stadium 2. Both should work, but I tested with the original, and you will see after you get this really fun attract screen here and get into the main menu, you're going to see a list of what is plugged into the system. It's going to show question mark, blah blah blah, ID stars. Doesn't matter yet, that's because there is not a save file here. But if we go back into the game, you're going to be playing Pokemon. You can go to the menu, into the help and config, do whatever it is you need, and once you actually get a save within this, that cartridge will then have data there that you can ingest into Pokemon Stadium. It's just because there's not a save file first. But this is just absurd. I can't believe that we're able to play a Game Boy emulator with inside of a recreation of a Nintendo 64, all with an FPGA logic. It seems like it shouldn't be possible, but just like the man here says, technology is incredible, and Robert has given us a brand new way to experience things. Now I know a lot of you are going to want to play around with this, so here's what you need to do on the file front. You need to grab your games wherever you want to find them. You should be dumping them from your original cartridges, wink wink, and you'll go ahead and extract the files. You want to put in the actual files, not anything like the zips. We need the extracted file here. From there you can just delete those zips, you don't need them anymore, and you're going to see that we have files ending in .gb. That is the file extension we're going to need for the Nintendo 64 FPGA core to understand how to load these in the first place. So once you have these files you want to bring over, whatever you want to test for Transfer Pak compatibility, go ahead and move over to your micro SD card. You'll go ahead under games and you will navigate to the Nintendo 64 folder. I'm just going to copy these 3 Pokemon games directly into there. That way when they are trying to load up within the core itself, they will automatically show up in a listing. I guess you could nest them in a separate folder, but for me, putting them right in the Nintendo 64 folder worked the best. And that's all you really need to do to get this working on the current core. Of course, this hasn't been fully tested yet. I have no idea if you're going to be able to get through an entire gameplay session of a Pokemon game here. It's possible it could freeze into the future. Like I said, it's only been an hour since Robert released this core, and I'm doing the voiceover now. So don't jump immediately in and think you can play this from start to finish, but somebody definitely should try it to find out what could be done. But you'll see here, if you go ahead and save your game, you do it within the actual menu like you were playing any Game Boy game here. And then once you come back out to Pokemon Stadium, you're going to see my save file name is right there, and it gives it an ID number as well, which is going to be very useful. But now that we have Game Boy running within the Nintendo 64 core, we should definitely give you a sound sample to hear what it sounds like. It is wild that it even works in the first place, so go ahead and listen, and I'll be right back. It's been absolutely forever since I played any Pokemon game, especially the Game Boy original, so tell me down below if that sounds correct to you. It is not something that my brain is familiar with. But we can go from Pokemon Blue to Pokemon Red, and we'll also have support for Yellow, which I'll show you in just a moment. But these are the three things I have tested. There's a litany of other uses for the Transfer Pak, different ways to unlock different features in certain games, so it's going to be a lot of fun to play around with this in the future and just see what is actually possible. A lot of this came through SNAC adapter support that's been added to the core as well, so theoretically you should be able to use original transfer packs at some point in time to do this as well, but you can also load it from file, and I'm sure a couple people out there are going to try to do this just for fun, and I can't wait to see photos of that, but I'm definitely not buying a transfer pack and the correct cartridge just to show it off on camera. But honestly, this is just so wild, and once you get back into Pokemon Stadium proper, if you go over to battle, you're going to see your cartridge you saved there as well, and that does have Pokemon available on it, at least to my knowledge. It's been forever since I've seen anything like this, but you can select the cartridge that we just loaded up in the Game Boy Tower, and it's going to give you options for Pokemon from those original set of games. So if you want to do this today, you just 100% can, and that's wild. Now, completely switching tracks, and I'm not sure why, everyone keeps asking me to retest Wayne Gretzky on the Nintendo 64. We're going to go with Los Angeles here because I can't deny Ferraro's amazing mustache. Must be a lot of Canadian fans of the channel out there because this is one of the most requested videos, and I figured I'd give you a couple tests after I told you about the Transfer Pak support. Last time we took a look at this game, it did absolutely nothing. It would load into an arena and then it would freeze and you would see absolutely nothing. This has been obviously massively improved because now you can get a game of hockey in on the Nintendo 64, and I totally understand why this is popular. I grew up in Vermont. Hockey was huge there. I only lived about 2 hours south of the Quebec border, so I 100% just understand everyone's love for hockey. Not sure if this is a great hockey game or not though, because it's not really my genre, so tell me down below if this was big back in the day. But I used to live in Canada and British Columbia teaching skiing in the summers on the glacier, and pretty much the only two things every Canadian I knew talked about was skiing and hockey. So this makes sense why you want to see it, and on the current core it is just working incredibly well. All of the models, all of the music, all of the sound effects, the glowing puck, it just seems to be here. Which is great because so much fun on the Nintendo 64 was had with multiplayer games, and Nintendo knew what they were doing when they put 4 controller ports on the front of the hardware itself. There's so many amazing multiplayer games to play on the system, and I could totally see having a ton of fun with some beers around with friends playing some Wayne Gretzky. So for all of you who are wondering how it is currently doing on the core, the last time we looked at it, it couldn't be played whatsoever. Now today you can play it, and if there's anything wrong with this image, with the gameplay whatsoever, I cannot tell, but I'm not the biggest fan of this game. Not saying it's not good, I just haven't played it a lot. So if it is your favorite Nintendo 64 game, leave me a comment down below and tell me what you think about its performance. It'll definitely help me out. Now, another game that I've been getting requests to test is Chameleon Twist 2, and I will say, as the 2 Chameleon Twist games that exist on the Nintendo 64, this one is definitely the inferior version. They took a lot of the charm out of the first game, changed up the gameplay, and while it is still a fun time, it's definitely a regression compared to the original game as far as the fun factor is concerned. But it does work here. You can get into the game, everything works well, and you even get to send a chameleon all the way up into the sky, which I think is one of the funniest openings for a game ever. He gets teeter-tottered into oblivion. You're all the way up in the stratosphere, and he's going to land gently on this island because somehow he has an umbrella that acts as a parachute somewhere on his back. Not sure what type of chameleon this is. Definitely looks a lot different than the first game, and it is just a strange pivot as far as a sequel is concerned. But it looks good, it sounds good, it plays good. It is the Chameleon Twist 2 that you know and remember just running in FPGA. But leave me a comment down below and tell me if you played this game back in the day, because I do get a lot of requests for it, but I don't even remember seeing this on store shelves. I remember the original Chameleon Twist. I think I had a few friends who had the cartridge, but I didn't even really know there was a sequel to this game until much later when I started collecting games and found out about it. So I think maybe it's one of those things, just didn't sell well, no one really had it back in the day. But it's cute, it's colorful, it's charming when it wants to be, and it is another 3D platformer on a system that definitely has no shortage of 3D platformers to play. This would not be the first game I pick up and play on the Nintendo 64 core if you haven't tested it yet, but if you're looking for another platform and you've already played all the ones you can think of, you can do worse than Chameleon Twist. It is fun, it is kind of interesting, and in some ways reminds me of Bomberman Hero, except not anywhere near as good. But you guys kept asking to see another test for this one, and I hadn't shown it yet on the channel, so here it is. And again, if there's a game that you want to see tested in the future, just leave me a comment down below and tell me what it is you want. Just be aware you can fall behind things in the background. Sure, you can stick to the wall with that chameleon tongue, but you can also fall to your little chameleon death if you're not paying enough attention. And wow, that's grim even for me. But you know what's not grim? Seeing Pikachu on Pokemon Stadium being loaded in with virtual transfer pack support on a Nintendo 64 FPGA core running on MiSTer FPGA. It's multiple layers of the onion, and it is so amazing to see. There's been a lot of talk about Nintendo 64 and FPGA on other devices recently in the news, but there's only one place where you can actually play Nintendo 64 games in FPGA, and now Game Boy games with an FPGA in a Nintendo 64 core, and that is MiSTer. If you have any questions or need any help getting this set up, leave me a comment down below, but I'm going to let you know that for the next couple days I'm going to be extremely busy with other related work in filmmaking, so if you don't hear from me very quickly, that is why. But if you want to go play around with this, it is here today, and there's so many incredible games that you can play on Nintendo 64. Later on this week I'm going to have a games that you can just complete 100% video. But yeah, go play some Pokemon, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.